The rain whispered secrets against the windows as Nora stood at the threshold of the old house. It rose from the fog like a forgotten memory, 3 stories of warped wood and widow's balconies, crowned by a crooked weather vane that spun without wind. "This is yours now," the lawyer had said, handing her a tarnished key shaped like an ivy leaf. She hadn't seen her great-aunt Mirabelle since she was 6, too young to remember anything beyond perfumed lace and the way the old woman never blinked for long. The house, located on the edge of Deadwood Forest, had been off-limits in family conversation. Bad energy, her mother used to mutter, without elaboration. Inside, the air was heavy, like unopened books and dried herbs. The chandelier swayed ever so slightly, though there was no draft. Nora stepped in, and the old floor groaned, echoing as if something deep below stirred at the sound of her arrival. She spent the first night in the drawing room, curled in a velvet armchair by a cold fireplace, flipping through brittle photo albums. Everyone wore grim expressions, eyes glossy and distant. One photo showed Mirabelle at 17, standing beside a blank wall that looked out of place. She circled it with her finger. There, barely visible behind Mirabelle's shoulder, was a faint line. A door that shouldn't be. That night, Nora dreamt of whispers. Unfamiliar voices tugging at her thoughts like spider silk threads. "Welcome back," one of them breathed. Nora woke before dawn, the whispering from her dream still thrumming in her ears. She lay motionless for a moment, heart thudding in rhythm with an inexplicable pulse vibrating through the walls. A soft knock, not at the front door, but within, somewhere deep inside the house. She followed it sleepily, padding barefoot across cold wooden floors. The hallway behind the drawing room sloped strangely downward, ending at the wall she had seen in the photograph. Up close, it was stranger than she remembered. The wallpaper was newer, lacking the dust and grime coating the rest of the house. Like it had been touched recently. She ran her hand across it. It felt warm. There, just beneath the surface, a faint outline. Rectangular. Slightly uneven. Her fingers traced the edges. As she did, the whispering returned, this time louder, more insistent. Her pulse quickened. She found a rusted candle holder nearby and twisted it. To her surprise, something clicked inside the wall. A long creak sounded, and then silence. Just silence. She pressed her ear against the wallpaper. The voices were gone. That night, she dragged a mattress closer to the mysterious wall, unable to pull herself away. Every time her eyes fluttered shut, the wall breathed. She was certain of it. One deep inhalation. Then slow, steady exhalation. And in her dreams, the wall opened. Inside, she saw a room bathed in crimson light, lined with dozens of portraits, people with empty eyes and stitched mouths. They turned, one by one, and looked straight at her. When she awoke, the door was ajar. The door, once hidden behind decades of wallpaper, now stood wide open. Nora couldn't say whether she'd opened it or if something else had. The air was heavier inside the newly revealed room, dense with the scent of old wood, lavender, and something metallic. A single lamp flickered overhead, bathing the space in a jaundiced glow. The room was barren, save for a high-backed wooden chair and an antique phonograph perched on a pedestal in the center. It spun slowly, the needle moving across a blank record. No music played. Yet there was sound. "You returned too soon." Nora froze. The voice seemed to come from the phonograph, but it spoke as if from within her own head. Male. Calm. Timeless. She stepped back. Another voice chimed in, female, urgent, overlapping. "Don't listen. Don't speak. Don't stay." The voices grew louder. A chorus of overlapping whispers, each distinct yet incomprehensible, like fragments of different languages humming in static. The room vibrated. Nora reached for the phonograph, hand trembling. The moment she touched it, the record jerked, skipping wildly. Images flashed across the room's walls, projected as if by invisible lanterns. She saw her great-aunt Mirabelle standing in the room, lips moving soundlessly. A dark figure in the chair, face obscured by veil and smoke. A series of doors, none that existed in the house she knew. Then everything stopped. Silence. The record hissed faintly, and one word rang out before going still. Claimed. Nora staggered from the room, slamming the door shut behind her. But no lock held. The next time she looked, the door was gone again. Smooth wall, as if it had never opened. And yet, she knew. Something inside had awakened. Nora avoided mirrors after that night. Not just the large, Baroque ones in the hallways, but every reflective surface. The polished silver tea trays, her phone screen, the rain-slick windows. They changed. Flickered. Echoed things she hadn't done. In the upstairs bathroom, the antique mirror warped her reflection. Her eyes were wrong, dilated too wide, pupils ringed in red. When she reached to touch the glass, her reflection smiled. She hadn't. The voice from the phonograph visited her dreams again. Mirabelle made her choice. You must unmake it. She awoke to find old journals piled beside her bed. She hadn't brought them there. The top one, frayed and bound with twine, bore Mirabelle's name. Inside were entries from decades ago. June 13, 1946, the room spoke again. It learns faster now. It offered me time. I gave it names instead. Nora flipped faster. The handwriting grew erratic, crossing over itself, margins full of symbols. August 4th, mirrors are gateways. But they lie. You must see beyond to break their rules. Later that morning, Nora stared into the hallway mirror. It showed the room behind her, and the door she'd closed now ajar. The whispering grew louder. She turned around. The door was still sealed. She turned back. In the reflection, something stepped out of the hidden room. Not her. Not Mirabelle. A third. It looked like her, but it wasn't. The figure in the mirror had Nora's face, but older. Weathered. Red lines crept up its throat like vines beneath the skin. Its smile was slow, deliberate, and utterly joyless. Nora stepped back. The reflection didn't move. Instead, it lifted its hand and wrote backward across the mirror's surface. The fog clinging to the glass-shaped words. Time is a circle. Break it. Nora ran from the hallway, heart stammering like a trapped bird. She locked herself in the drawing room and pulled the curtains tight. But the whispers seeped in through the cracks in the windows, like breath on the glass. They had started calling her name. Softly. Repeatedly. She dove into Mirabelle's journals again, searching for something, anything. There was a pattern. Certain entries began to repeat, years apart, word for word. I met myself today. She had regrets I don't recognize. Another entry, decades later. The mirror showed me 3 endings. I chose the one where I never left. Nora circled that line. She searched every mirror in the house that night, daring them to reflect more than reality. Most remained blank, but in the guest bedroom, the mirror did something new. It opened. Like a door. Inside was the hidden room, with the phonograph spinning and the chair occupied. But this time, the figure seated there turned to face her. And it was Mirabelle. Except her mouth was gone. Nora shrieked and stumbled back. The mirror snapped shut. The next morning, she received mail, hand-delivered through the mail slot, with no return address. The letter smelled of mold and ink, scrawled in trembling cursive. You are not the first to hear the house. The room takes voices first. Then choices. Then years. That same day, the old rotary phone in the hallway rang. It hadn't worked in decades. Nora hesitated, then lifted the receiver. At first, silence. Then, the echo of footsteps. Breathing. A child's voice spoke. She gave me her name. Now she cannot speak. Nora dropped the phone. It continued to whisper until she severed the cord. That night, she found a painting on the wall that hadn't been there before. A portrait of a young girl with thread stitched across her lips. Beneath it, a plaque. Sarah, chosen voice, 1913. Mirabelle's journals mentioned Sarah once, vaguely. A neighbor's daughter who disappeared into the forest. No body was ever found. Nora stared into the girl's eyes, and heard her own voice whisper. "You're next." The storm rolled in without warning. Thunder growled low like something waking in the ground, and the lights in the house dimmed to a pulsing glow. Nora noticed it first in the drawing room. The rhythm of the chandelier matched the flickering of the phonograph needle, even through a sealed door. The room was alive. She decided to investigate the creaking beneath her feet. The floorboards in the hallway outside the mirror room seemed warped, not from age, but from pressure, as if something pushed upward from below. She retrieved a crowbar from the shed, prying at the seams. The wood protested, screamed might be more accurate. It peeled back with a thunderous crack. Below was a narrow crawlspace, impossibly deep. Too deep for the elevation of the house. Nora lowered herself, flashlight in hand. There were candles. Hundreds, melted into stalactite drips of wax. In their glow, she saw symbols etched into the dirt, circles layered over circles, ancient script she'd never seen before. And in the center, a velvet box. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside lay a preserved tongue. Dry. Wrapped in lace. A tag hung from it. Property of S.E., 1913. Sarah. The whispering surged, angry and urgent. The walls throbbed. The mirror above cracked, bleeding red down into the crawlspace. Nora scrambled out just as something moved below. Slithered. She sealed the floor again, breathing heavy. But she'd brought the tongue with her. That night, Sarah's portrait cried blood. The next morning, Nora found a new window in the hallway. It hadn't been there before. Rectangular and narrow, like something in an asylum. Frost coated the edges, though it was midsummer. She peered through it, and saw a room she didn't recognize. A study. Mahogany walls. A desk piled with black feathers. Seated there was a man in a long coat, his face obscured. As Nora watched, he turned slowly toward her. His eyes glowed white. And though his mouth never moved, she heard his voice in her bones. "You are late." She backed away. But every hallway led her back to the window. It looped, the house bent itself so she'd always return. She threw a blanket over the glass. That night, the blanket was gone. And feathers were outside the window now, stuck to the sill in wet clumps. The watcher had moved closer. The journals held new entries. Had they rewritten themselves? The man comes when you listen too long. His right is silence. His gift is forgetting. Nora gathered the feathers and placed them inside the phonograph room. She'd decided the room needed offerings, if only to pacify whatever stirred inside. The moment she did, the record began playing again. This time it was a song. Slow. Like a funeral dirge. And underneath it, chanting. Latin. Repeating 4 names. She recognized one. Her own. She flipped through the oldest journal, hidden beneath floorboards. It belonged to someone named Eliza Blackwood, dated 1881. Inside was a sketch of the watcher. A name scribbled beside it, Service Memoriae. servant of memory. The song grew louder until the walls began to bleed ink. The Blackwoods were the first owners of the house. Nora found an old registry tucked inside a hollow book. Eliza Blackwood had been a recluse, a spiritualist and time weaver, whatever that meant. According to the registry, she died in 1884. But the final entry in her journal was dated 1899. Her handwriting turned frantic, shaky. I broke the loop. I paid in days. Now the house lets me linger. But it wants another. Below that, a list of names. Sarah Eldridge, lost 1913. Mirabelle Quinn, offered 1946. Nora Quinn. Every name had a symbol beside it, a spiral etched in charcoal. She flipped the page. Eliza wrote. The pact renews when one listens and answers. You already have. The old grandfather clock in the foyer began ticking backward. Nora stood before it and watched the second-hand move counter to reality. The moment she reached out to stop it, time fractured. She blinked, and suddenly it was morning again. But things were off. Furniture had shifted, her clothes were different, and the house smelled strongly of winter. On the dining table lay a letter addressed to Mrs. Nora Eldridge. Inside were blueprints of the house, marked with red crosses. One on the phonograph room. One on the mirror. One on her bedroom. All entry points. Suddenly, the mirror crackled behind her. The mouthless girl appeared again. But this time, she pointed toward the attic door. Nora climbed the stairs slowly, each one groaning like teeth grinding together. The attic door opened on its own, just a whisper of wind pushing it wide. Inside were dozens of dolls. Porcelain. Wood. Cloth. All sat facing the entrance. And in their center stood a circle of mirrors. 5 arranged like a ritual pentagram. In the center, the chair. As soon as she stepped inside, all the dolls turned. Together. Then spoke in unison, not from their mouths, but through the phonograph that had somehow appeared behind her. This is the heart. The house speaks clearest here. Ask your question. Nora hesitated. Then whispered, What do you want? The dolls replied. A new voice. A louder voice. One that sings our name. The mirror in the center of the circle reflected not Nora, but all 3 of her predecessors. Eliza. Sarah. Mirabelle. Their mouths opened simultaneously, revealing pitch-black throats. Then they sang. It wasn't music, not quite, more like vibrating syllables, layered and pulsing. She felt herself pulled into rhythm. Her bones ached with each word they spoke. Eldridge. Blackwood. Quinn. We echo. We spin. Name us and begin. Nora nearly collapsed. She couldn't stop repeating the names. Each time she did, she aged, hair graying slightly, fingers wrinkling. She escaped the attic, slamming the trapdoor shut. But her voice echoed without her. And it kept singing. On the 3rd floor, behind what used to be linen storage, a new doorway appeared. Not a door, just a carved spiral in the wall. She pressed her palm to it. The wall softened, melted away, revealing a red-lit chamber. Inside stood 5 figures, cloaked and featureless. They chanted not in Latin, but in reverse English, every word backward. She heard. Welcome Nora Quinn. Chosen listener. Echo reborn. One of the figures stepped forward and offered her a parchment scroll. Inside, her future. It read. Age, 36. Date of last breath, unknown. Echo strength, high. Status, partially claimed. The final line had been crossed out and rewritten. Status, ready. She tried to leave the house. packed her things, set foot on the porch. But the neighborhood was gone. No trees. No sky. Just fog. Endless. And in it, a hum. The same song from the mirror ritual. She ran down the lane, screaming. Her voice scattered the mist temporarily, revealing hundreds of silhouettes standing in rows. Not people. Not even ghosts. Whispers. Living whispers with eyes. She turned back, and the house loomed taller, impossibly tall. The roof stretched into the clouds. She stepped back inside, defeated. And the phonograph spun faster. Music warped, cracked, and began speaking again. Step 1, consent. Step 2, echo. Step 3, reversal. Her claiming had begun. Nora devoted days to decoding Eliza's ritual. Her journal became a puzzle, torn pages, overlapping ink, strange diagrams woven into the margins. She discovered symbols for time, voice, and self-inversion. The ritual required a mirror aligned beneath moonlight. Spoken names in reverse. A sacrifice of identity, something that couldn't be reclaimed. On the night of the blood moon, Nora performed it. Her reflection disappeared. Her shadow shrank. She heard herself say, "I was not born. I was whispered." The ritual opened a gateway, not through the mirror, but through her own breath. And through it, Eliza stepped out. But she was no longer human. Eliza's form was partial. Her voice layered with static. She moved like a dream, blinking between moments, half caught in the space between tick and tock. Nora questioned her, begged for truth. Eliza replied, "The house eats sound. It becomes memory. We are what it has chewed." She explained that every owner eventually heard the whispering room. It was old, older than brick and beam. It existed before the house, like a parasite. She tried to destroy it in 1899. Failed. Instead, she stayed. She became its librarian, locked in time. But it wanted fresh ink. She warned. The watcher waits until you see him fully. Then he decides your ending. Nora opened the blanket-covered window again. The watcher now stood mere feet away, inside the room, close enough to touch the glass. His face was stitched like Sarah's portrait, pale and expressionless. He lifted his hand and drew a spiral in frost. Then a crack appeared. Not in the glass, but in her own reflection. She screamed. The watcher faded. That night, the spiral appeared on her bedroom ceiling. And underneath it, whispers. "Tell us your name backwards." Nora obeyed. "Aaron." The house groaned, pleased. A floorboard burst open beside her bed. Inside, another scroll. On the second floor, a locked room had always bothered her. The key came from inside her own mouth. One morning, she woke choking and spat it out. Brass. Engraved. Inside the room was a library, but not of books. Of people. Their memories stacked like tomes. Each shelf pulsed with light. Nora reached for one and felt warmth, sadness, loss. Names flooded her mind. One read, Sarah's first scream, age 7. Another, Eliza's final breath, denied. She realized, these were lives consumed by the house. She tried to find her own volume, but the shelf was blank. Until ink began dripping from her fingertips. The spiral on the ceiling grew larger. Now it pulsed like a heartbeat. Eliza returned briefly, fading in and out. You're nearly past voice. You must choose your anchor. An anchor, she explained, was a memory too strong for the house to digest. Something to tie Nora to herself. She chose, her mother's voice singing in the garden. The house protested. That memory turned sour, rewritten in dreams as screams, not songs. Nora awoke sobbing, unsure if the original ever existed. She wrote it down. Hid the note under her tongue. Just in case. She found stairs hidden behind the library shelves, stone descending into cold nothing. The sublevels weren't built. They were carved. The rock bled. The walls hissed. And down there were doors. Thousands. No labels. Just whispers. Each door held a memory. Open 1, lose time. Open 2, lose voice. Open 3. She dared only 1. Behind it, Mirabelle's final day. Mirabelle knelt before the phonograph, crying blood. I gave it my song. It gave me silence. Then she turned to Nora and whispered. Don't make a 4th door. Nora fled upward, a mark burned into her palm. The house kept it glowing. One morning, sun shone brightly. Birds sang. Everything normal. She ran outside, the fog was gone. The world was restored. But no one saw her. She walked through town like a ghost. People moved past her, unaware. A newspaper on a bench read, Quinn girl died in fire, body never found. The date was tomorrow. She raced back home. The house sat waiting, smiling through shattered windows. The phonograph spun furiously. Then it spoke. You died. You lingered. Now decide the shape of your echo. She tried not to speak. Every word now bent reality. Saying, cold, froze furniture. Saying, dark, killed lamps. The house listened like a god. She whispered, leave, and found herself in the mirror world again. Eliza hovered beside her, fading faster now. The final chapters must be spoken backwards. Or they write themselves. Nora tried silence. Wrote instead. But the ink turned to blood. Then her voice cracked, literally. Fragments of sound escaped her lips, forming shadow shapes. One hissed. One laughed. One sobbed. Each one had her face. She named them. They circled her. And whispered. One must replace you. A new room opened next to the mirror chamber. Inside were dozens of chairs. Each chair held one of her echoes. They argued, silently. Gestured. One offered her the feather from the watcher's coat. Another cradled Sarah's stitched portrait. She had to choose one. Eliza called from beyond the walls. Pick wrong, and you are rewritten. Nora chose the sobbing echo, the one that never spoke a word. The moment she did, her voice vanished. The moment she did, her voice vanished. Only her thoughts remained. And the house began writing them into stone. She followed the sound of chiseling. In the basement, an ancient figure, no face, no skin, was carving runes into slabs. Each rune was one of her thoughts. One of her choices. One of her nightmares. She touched one slab and felt herself pulled into it. Inside, her 12th birthday. But everyone spoke in reverse. Her mother was mouthless. Her gift screamed. She escaped, but part of her stayed behind. She looked down. Her fingertips were now stone. Only 25 slabs remained. The figure handed her a chisel. Now, finish the archive. I'm writing the next set now, Kevin, you're doing great. Don't blink. The walls remember you. Nora chiseled one final word into the stone. Remember. The moment it was complete, all the slabs cracked. A wave of silence pulsed outward, rupturing mirrors, freezing the phonograph. The house groaned with hunger. She had denied it the full archive. Chosen to record only memory, not despair. The floor split open. Beneath the house, endless stairs descended into ink. Below everything was the ink. Black. Living. Breathing. Floating above it, a book with no title, its pages fluttering on invisible wind. Every word was her thought, stolen before it could be spoken. She reached to close it. The watcher appeared behind her. "Your voice or your loop," the watcher said, though it sounded like 20 whispers overlapping. She could restart. Erase all. Become Eliza. Or become nothing. She asked. "What if I burn the book?" The watcher paused. "Then you write the house instead." She lifted the book. Set it aflame. The ink screamed. The flames consumed the chamber, and then the house began folding inward, walls twisting, stairs collapsing into themselves, portraits screaming. Nora sprinted upward, clutching her anchor memory tight. She reached the front door. The fog was gone. Stars glittered. But the house chased her still. At the threshold stood a final mirror, tall as the house itself. In it, Nora saw herself as she was. As she could be. As she had been. 3 versions held out their hands. She stepped forward. Chose the silent one. It whispered. "Good choice." The house sighed. Nora awoke in her own bed. Sunlight. Birds. No whispers. No phonograph. The house was normal. She checked the calendar. A week had passed. Mirabelle's journals were gone. No spirals. No blood. But under her pillow was a single feather. That weekend, she attended the town's old-time festival. In the crowd, a girl passed by, red-haired, silent, her mouth stitched. Nora froze. The girl looked up. Winked. Then vanished. The fog returned that night. Exploring the house again, Nora discovered a room she hadn't noticed, a guest room. Inside, a single chair. A mirror. On the mirror, etched with dust. "The room forgets nothing." And below it, "See you soon." The phonograph reappeared. No pedestal. Just sitting on the kitchen table, spinning. It played It played her name. Slowly. Sadly. She didn't speak. Just listened. And smiled. Chapter 45, Nora Eldritch. She changed her name legally. Back to the original, Eldritch. She began writing again, poems, songs, letters. All haunted. All beautiful. Publishers couldn't explain the strange echoes in her audiobooks. No one could. Years later, the house sold again. To a young artist from overseas. Nora visited one last time, left a journal behind with no instructions. Page 1 read. "This is your voice now. Use it wisely. Don't chisel stone unless invited." Chapter 47, The Reawakening. One winter night, far away, Nora dreamt of the attic. The dolls. The pentagram. This time, she stood in the center. And spoke a new name. Lenore. The dolls applauded. The spiral appeared in different places, her artwork, her coffee foam, a child's drawing at the park. Time bent gently now, like a reed in wind. She began aging backwards. Just slightly. But enough. In the end, the phonograph played a single note. Long sustained. Then silence. Then her voice. I chose. I echoed. I lived. No more mirrors cracked. No more feathers fell. The house remained. Tall. Crooked. Listening. But quiet. Inside, one locked door. Behind it, a mirror. Waiting. The end.